Cool Figure TV. Revolutionary salute. Revolutionary salute. Like, share, subscribe. Welcome to the House of Revolution. You know I'm your humble host, the Yao Mean of Revolution. And we talking about the surveillance state. You've been watched at all times. The New Orleans jailbreak. Very scariest thing. We're going to get into that. Before we do, be sure to wipe your feet. That means hit the like button. You in the House of Revolution. Like, share, subscribe, support the platform, y'all. Well, very dangerous. Criminals is on the loose. But the real criminals are the ones surveilling you 24/7.
So it's a jailbreak straight out of a movie. 7 inmates still on the run after escaping a jail in New Orleans. Surveillance video now showing the 10 inmates right here running out of the jail on Friday after squeezing through a hole behind a toilet. Now we have this new surveillance video footage right here. Check this out. It appears to show 2 of the prison escapees walking in New Orleans through the French Quarter in plain clothing with their heads down on Friday morning. One of the prisoners shown in the video is actually arrested shortly after this video was taken. The other inmate is seen on the footage. Well, he's still at large. Joining me now is our Faith Abube, who's in New Orleans, and she's been tracking this story. Faith.
Yeah. What are these criminals? I ain't talking about the gangsters on the loose that should be apprehended immediately, very violent. What are these criminals doing with these cameras tracking you 24/7 around this goddamn country? 1984, this is Orwellian. These people are pretending like they're out here trying to help the community. Why y'all don't solve more crimes? Y'all tracking everybody. Y'all know about everything, what everybody doing. Very deep, and a lot of people is looking at this and understanding exactly what's going on. You go into some of these conversations, like, hey, wait a minute. What the hell y'all mean? Y'all surveillancing everybody and facial recognition. You don't have no rights. They get facial recognition, your ass all over the city.
Yeah, Kara, law enforcement agents are calling them a useful partner. This is a nonprofit, an independent agency apart from law enforcement, but they have been able to give law enforcement information in this investigation that has been valuable. In fact, it led to the arrest of one of the suspects. And we talked to the executive director who explained to us how this all happened. So as soon as they learned about the escaped inmates on Friday, they were able to put all the mugshots into their system. They have about 200 facial recognition cameras across the city, specifically in the business district, the entertainment district.
That's disgusting. Y'all ain't looking for no damn criminals. Just this one time, y'all pretend like it's shades. Won't you believe, oh, this is so good. Oh, I'm so grateful to be surveilled all my life. Are you crazy? These people just put your picture into their little camera. They track you all over the city all day long. They got all these little dirty details. Wherever you think you stop it, they ain't watching you, bro. And these people ain't just doing this to people who break out of jail. That's just a diversion. They let them out of there for just to run this bullshit on us. This is disgusting. Definitely want them criminals, them killers back behind bars. But the real criminals is these motherfuckers surveillance every damn body all day long. That's illegal. They told us this is what China was doing. Oh shit! They say Putin do North Korea. This is North Korea level surveillance, bro.
Including the French Quarter. They were able to quickly get a hit on 2 of the inmates. They saw them on camera. They were able to compare them to the mugshot and realize that, hey, we think we have 2 of these suspects. By the time law enforcement got there, though, they were able to arrest one of the suspects, but the other one got away, and that is due to timing. Officials here at the jail say that they did not know that the suspect escaped the jail until 7 hours after they had left the jail. And so by the time the facial recognition nonprofit learned about the escape, the information
all them dirty ass cops up there sleeping on their job, doing all kind of bullshit going on besides. That's how people get beat or stored all day. The police don't never be paying attention. I should know. See what happened? This is how they whacked Epstein. They was sleeping and all that type of shit. 8 hours before they find out killers and gorillas is on the loose. Everybody got to get fired. Then they trying to blame some maintenance work. Oh, he's a crash dummy. Y'all know what's going on here. And we're going to start with the federal government surveillance and everybody. We don't want this type of surveillance. Hell no. That's North Korea. Won't need you following us all over the goddamn city all day long. That's nonsense, man. These people, that's disgusting.
That they were able to gather had essentially already expired. Take a listen. timing is everything in this manhunt.
They can do this. All right. Since you caught these jail escape killers and guerrillas, cool, y'all done that. Why the hell y'all not? Think about all the people that's wanted right now in the city of New Orleans for murder, kidnapping, armed robbery, extortion. Why haven't you picked them up? Why haven't you put their picture into your little magical face recognition and went got them? Because they love that type of violence. They just got to get these criminals back off the street real quick because the city is very upset. But now we want real answers. Why the hell is the killer steady running around killing and y'all ain't picked them up yet? It's obvious you can track them down, right?
Oh, timing meant a lot. Regrettably, we lost one of the murderers just by about 1 minute. If we would have received notifications even 1 minute earlier from the sheriff's office, we would have actually helped apprehend 2 subjects, not just 1.
And that's because you were tracking him right here on this camera?
Actually, yes, on this very camera right here. It went off, but it went off as soon as we put him in.
And we do know that the jail is conducting an internal investigation into the delays and, of course, how the suspects were able to get out in the first place. 3 employees have been placed on administrative leave amid that internal investigation. In the meantime, though, the governor is also calling this a failure. He wants a full audit of this facility here behind me where the inmates escaped on Friday. There are a lot of investigations that are going on right now trying to figure out exactly why this happened, how to prevent it in the future. In the meantime, though, we also talked to that police superintendent this afternoon who told us some of the latest details about this investigation. One of the biggest challenges they're facing right now.
Oh, this is police superintendent. Oh, lady, you fired. Why are you still out?
Is trying to stop family members and friends from helping these inmates. There have been situations, according to the superintendent of police, where they thought they had the inmates. They thought they were zoomed in on a house where the inmates could be hiding. They got inside only to find that the inmates were gone. And they believe that—
I'm trying to blame the family. What the hell are you talking about? Families, the family of these people scared to death of their own families. We start with the police, lady. What do you know and when did you know it? The hell are you talking about? The family, the maintenance. Police, ma'am. That's who let these killers out. Shit, they probably making sure they go put a couple more hits on a couple people for them. This is disgusting. The terror they do to our community, and then they let the good citizens know, oh, we got facial recognition, so they'll never come towards you. What about the other people? What about people who cooperated against these killers and y'all told them they'll be all right? Now they're not all right. This is disgusting. But the bigger problem is we're under surveillance 24/7. Nobody is safe with this facial recognition. This won't make you safer. It make you less safe because the government is the real criminals.
That is because they were getting some assistance. So they're warning these people to stop helping, or else they may face some serious consequences, including charges in this case. But they say they do have actionable intelligence on all 7 of them. They believe a majority of them are still hunkering down in the immediate area. But it's possible that many of them or some of them may
know. Who told them that? See, this is disgusting. They hunkering down. This is like a experiment. They are very horrible experiment they plan on the goddamn community. How the hell you know where they at? Why you ain't arrested them yet?
Maybe in other parishes or even nearby states. So they're looking into all of that. They are telling the public not to panic. They are taking this very seriously. But again, a lot of investigation and a lot of questions left on how this happened.
Don't panic. Oh, man. Lady, man, that's easy for you to say. Hold on. Now we're going to salute. We got a lot to look into. But I want to first salute to my brother, because this is my brother right here. 504 Street Stories Gangster News Network. Because he the reason I told him yesterday, I got to run this. I got to run this story. Damn, these people took my air block off too. We have to deal with some ass today, y'all. So little friend of mine here. But he the reason I had to look into this story, because I seen this video about just one of the inmates that escaped from the New Orleans jail. I said, oh shit, I gotta look deeper into this.
I see these guys broke out of jail, and now I think 3 of them got caught. See, don't go. running around here thinking y'all dog the bounty hunter, you heard me, and trying to run up on one of them dudes, you understand? Or up your gun on one of them, lay down, citizens arrest. And the dude runs straight at your ass with an eye full of kill.
In the making, a man accused of killing 4 people, 2 on Mardi Gras Day back in 2018.
All I could think of is getting her over here in safety. You know, this is ridiculous. People are supposed to have a good time, not going and killing each other.
Eric Groves is a heinous criminal who ran terror down in the lower Ninth Ward.
Revolutionary salute to our brother Brooklyn Zoo for the donation to the war chest. Revolution is a way of life. Absolutely appreciate the love, family. Salute to you. Appreciate your help to keep the lights on. The House of Revolution.
For well over a decade.
What are you thinking of? Do you think about the children and expected mothers with babies that you could have killed? Why are you doing this to these people, to us? We never asked for it. You know, get help, whatever's going on. Handle it a different way. Don't kill each other.
Groves pled guilty to 2 counts of manslaughter and 2 counts of second-degree murder.
I'm back with another video. Welcome to New Orleans, where the brass man hit the streets, but them choppers hit even harder. It's the big
salute to my brother 504 Street Stories, Free Stories, and Gangster News Network.
Easy, but ain't nothing easy about surviving in the NO. Under all them Mardi Gras masks and crawfish balls lies a war zone. A city with a heartbeat that skipped one, where every block got a name, every corner got a code, and every youngin' chasing respect or revenge. And in the heart of that was one name that rang out heavy, Derrick Groves, a.k.a. Woo. He ain't just no hood myth or some name on the news. Nah, Woo was a storm, haunting them same streets that raised soldiers and took them. He came up round dope boys, stick-up kids, murder charges, and police task forces breathing down his neck. And still he rose, violent, loud, untouchable. Woo was born into the heat, grew up where the only job that paid was hustling, school, and that was just something to walk past on the way to the trap. Woo learned fast, keep your mouth shut, stay 10 toes down, and never let no man disrespect you on these streets. His name started ringing at a young age. First for petty shit, stacking bikes, flipping nicks, pressing other little crews, but it ain't take long for the stakes to rise. By the time he hit 16, they say Woo was already carrying his stick and moving packs like a grown man. He wasn't just in the streets, he was the streets. And the feds, they was watching, cause they knew Woo wasn't no average corner boy. He was organized, dangerous, connected, and worst of all, he ain't feared nothing. 2016, a body dropped, then another. People ain't really talk, but the whispers all said the same thing. That was that boy Woo. Detectives started stacking cases. Homicide units looking for links. But in the hood, he ain't need no paperwork. Everybody knew Woo was moving militant. By the time the calendar flipped to 2018, it was already too late. Woo's name was cemented in the streets and his hands was tied to blood, allegedly. Multiple murders, firearms, drug runs, and that Mardi Gras shooting, that one made national headlines.
Hi, I'm Jessica Cartalia. Police in New Orleans are investigating several shootings that happened during the city's Mardi Gras celebrations. The first 2 shootings happened in the afternoon when fights broke out near the traditional parade route. 2 more shootings were reported over the course of the day across the city. 3 people in total were killed. 5 more were injured.
But we gonna get to that, cause see, Woo's story, it ain't just about one shooting. It's about how a kid from the trenches went from pushing grabs to pushing bodies in the dirt, and how the feds finally caught up, but only after the damage was already done. 2017, the feds started moving quiet, but heavy. See, Woo wasn't just on NOPD's radar no more. Nah, now it was the DEA, ATF, and even Homeland Security. Yeah, it was like that, because they knew he wasn't just out here hustling. He was allegedly moving work across lines that ran up and down the Gulf. They got eyes on trap spots, wires on phones. They flipping Woo's little homies one by one, trying to find a crack in the armor. But Woo, he was playing chess, kept his circle tight. spoken codes, changed phones like outfit. To them alphabet boys, he was a ghost. But ghosts leave trails, and Wu's trail was bodies, burners, and work. 2018, first official Fed hits come down. Federal agents indict Wu on firearm charges. They say he got caught possessing multiple guns while already being a convicted felon, including a 45 with the serial filed off, a Draco pistol, and an extended Glock with a switch. But here's the twist. Them guns, they tied to unsolved murders. So while the charges on paper said firearm possession, behind the scenes, they were stacking the puzzle. The feds ain't moving unless they got motive. And with Wu, every weapon came with whispers, retaliation hits, ambushes, turf walls, all of it allegedly though. But the streets ain't need no indictment to know what time it was. Wu was out here, but not free. Indictments were dropping like mixtapes. Wu just moved slicker. Later that same year, boom, new charges. This time, narcotics trafficking. They say Wu was pushing more than just local weight. We talking multi-state operations heavy on pills, lean, coke, and weed. Federal paperwork called it a coordinated distribution network with ties to violent crews stretching from New Orleans to Atlanta and all the way to Houston. Phones got tapped, trap houses got raided, GPS trackers got slapped on calls. They building a case with layers stacking. Every text, every dollar, every burner phone Wu ever touched. Still nothing stuck heavy yet. Wu was moving smart, only dealt direct, never hand to hand, always behind layers of fall guys. But fall guys talk, and eventually so did the walls around him. Then came the one that made Wu infamous, the 2018 Mardi Gras mass shooting, February the 13th. Streets was packed, floats rolling, brass bands playing, tourists everywhere. Then out of nowhere, gunfire erupt. Multiple shooters, over 20 rounds fired. Chaos, blood on the pavement, right there in the aftermath.
Now at 8:12 last night, a group of people were in a car on Andrew Street in the lower 9th Ward when another group started firing shots. One victim there died on the scene and another died at the hospital. 3 other people from that shooting are recovering in the hospital here this morning. Now again, 2 of these 3 shootings did take place near the parade route, and those on the parade route, the witnesses say that all of this violence has to stop.
Feds ain't officially confirming at first, but inside them sealed affidavits, they believe Wu orchestrated the whole thing, allegedly over a turf beef behind something personal. Wrong look, wrong time, wrong block. And then when the city flipped, Wu wasn't just a suspect. He became a headline, the face of the city's spiraling violence. The mayor gave statements. NOPD increased patrols. ATF called it a major escalation in organized urban warfare. After Mardi Gras, the gloves came off. They raided everything, stash houses, baby mama cribs, cousins' apartments, scooped up phones, pills, straps, burner accounts, even old Snapchat stories. In late 2018, Wu was officially indicted in federal court. Charges read like a mixtape track list: narcotic trafficking, felon in possession of firearms, possession of firearms and furtherance of drug trafficking, and suspected links to multiple murders. They painted Wu like a criminal CEO, running crews, setting hits, pushing dope, stacking bread. And even inside them courtrooms, Wu ain't flinched. No cooperation, no plea. Just that cold stare, like he already knew the life he had chose. But the feds, they don't stop. And they had time, evidence, witnesses, and they planned to bury Wu under the jail. 2020 hit, and the case against Wu, it came heavy. By now, the feds had been building for over 2 years. Surveillance, wiretaps, informants. They were stacking statements, phone records, jail calls. Every brick in Wu's empire was being documented. And then folks started flipping. People who used to ride with, eat with, call bro, started signing them proffer agreements, testifying in open court, telling the stories about drug runs, stash spots, even bodies that never made the news. Witness 4 say Wu gave the order for a hit on a rival crew leader back in 2017. Witness 6 say Wu kept a Draco under his seat every time he rode. Witness 9 claimed Wu bragged about airing out the Mardi Gras shooting like it was Baghdad. Some say they was lying, others say they was scared. But in that courtroom, them stories stuck. The feds ain't just relying on witnesses, though. Nah, they came with the evidence mountain. Phone taps from Wu's Galaxy burner where he had talking in code about zips, sticks, and slides. GPS logs showing him outside the robber's house the night before a retaliation hit. Photos pulled up from deleted Snapchat stories showing stacks, straps, and lean cups in the background. They even had jail calls, Wu talking reckless, using coded language that the feds decoded later. Calls where he mentioned dudes had crossed lines and needed to be put to sleep. Wu's defense tried to play it down, that the feds were fabricating, stretching slang into conspiracy. But in the jury's eyes, that pile of proof was looking way too high to ignore. It all came down to that one day, room packed, media lined up. The jury came back after 3 days of deliberation, and the verdict: guilty on multiple federal firearm charges, guilty on possession with intent to distribute narcotics, guilty on possession of firearms and furtherance of drug trafficking. And the murders are not charged directly. It was considered relevant conduct, meaning they counted when it came to sentencing. Judge ain't hold back, called Wu a danger to the community, said his leadership turned neighborhoods into combat zones, and dropped the hammer. Life in federal prison, no parole, no second chance, just cold steel bars.
Experience an incredible selection of the latest equipment, clothing, shoes, and accessories, plus a dedicated...
In the making, a man accused of killing 4 people, 2 on Mardi Gras Day back in 2018. He was found guilty on several charges, including second-degree murder.
WDSU reporter Ariel Brumfield joins us live from the DA's office with how this verdict is impacting the families involved. Ariel?
Well, you guys, this guy has hurt a lot of people, and it's been several years at this point. Investigators in this case says that Derek Groves, he is going away for a very long time.
FBI Homicide Unit Chief.
A guilty verdict now landed 6 years in the making. Derek Groves, a man accused of killing 2 people Mardi Gras Day in 2018 and injuring several others, pled guilty on Wednesday to several charges.
A jury returned a unanimous and powerful verdict in the case of Derek Groves. Now, Groves was found guilty on all counts, 2 counts of second-degree murder and 2 counts of attempted second-degree murder.
Investigators say Groves opened fire on a house party on St. Claude with AK-47 rifles, killing Jamar Robinson and Byron Jackson. 3 eyewitnesses and cell phone records helped dismantle Groves' alibi. In the trial, District Attorney Jason Williams says was nothing short of complications for the prosecutors and the victims' families.
The weight of their grief has been immense and a constant companion through every hearing daily, every delay, every setback. And while no court decision can bring back their loved ones or fully heal their wounds, this verdict provides a measure of justice.
But we learned Thursday justice is being served once again. 2 other victims Groves is accused of killing, Tyrone Francis and Woodrow Smith.
Derek Groves is a heinous criminal who ran terror down in the lower Ninth Ward for well over a decade. And that reign of terror has been ended. In fact, today, Derek Groves pled to 2 more murder cases.
Groves pled guilty to 2 counts of manslaughter and 2 counts of second-degree murder. And we're told Groves will be serving his sentences consecutively. Reporting from the DA's office, I'm Ariel Brumfield, WDSU News.
Once Wu was gone, the streets changed, but now how folks expect it. Some say peace came, others say vacuums created chaos. Young wolves fighting to take the throne Wu left behind. Police increased patrols. DEA hit harder, but still the cycle kept spinning. Wu's name kept ringing in the streets. Some call him a monster, others a legend. Depends on who you ask, but everybody agreed on one thing. Derek Wu Grove left a mark on New Orleans that ain't never gonna fade. Once the gates closed behind Wu, it was a whole new battlefield. Even though Wu was already in federal custody, his state-level charges were pending, what ultimately led to him being transferred back to Orleans Parish Prison. The rest will be history.
What does it say? And I mean this respectfully, but you said, and I'm going to quote you here, that you observed those guys running out at 1 o'clock in the morning. What does it say for jailhouse safety and security when you see a jailbreak like that, but you fail to notify anyone, NOPD, the public, anyone?
We didn't say that.
What did you say then?
We observed on the video later this morning. We had to pull that video.
He said you observed at 1 a.m.
So let's be clear. I said what we observed on the video through investigation. So yes, when they looked at the video this morning after the staff realized they were gone, my investigators found that at 1 a.m. that's what happened.
Good evening. I'm Colonel Robert Hodges, Superintendent of Louisiana State Police. Today we gather to give an update on the 10 fugitives.
I wanted to stop and say thank you to the New Orleans Police Department, our unified command made up of the state police, of course, our federal partners, as they continue to work tirelessly on this manhunt to ensure that everyone is captured. And in the meantime, I want you to know that you are safe.
Save all month long during Specs Rosé sale. Cheers to savings.
Also, have you lost trust in your deputies because you believe this was an inside job?
Some of them, we have really hardworking deputies, but we're not going to tar and feather everybody with the same brush.
Who need to hear this? But them 11 boys that escaped out that prison, they did not go through no toilet. They must really think we dumb, slow, or crazy to believe that they went through that little bit asshole. And they must think we really throwed off, that they really stopped what they was doing before they escaped to, ooh, let's write this, y'all. You think if you about to escape, you about to pause to let me write something? Baby, come on now. It was an inside job, and they trying to cover it up with that. They trying to cover it up. It was an inside job. That's why on the videos you see them opening them doors and going through the back dock. Them boys know somebody in that prison, bitch, a worker. You know, one of them girls that worked there.
Yo, this right here ain't no Netflix drama. This ain't Shawshank Redemption. This real life. Orleans Parish Jail, New Orleans, Chopper City. And what went down that night? Yeah, it flipped the whole city upside down. You got inmates who somehow vanished. No alarms, no lockdown, no nothing. Just abracadabra, poof, they gone. But when you start digging into the story, man, that whole escape, it don't add up. Not even close. Let's break this down piece by piece. Now peep this. I'm about to put y'all boys up on game. So here's what they told us. 10 men broke out of jail by going through a hole behind the toilet. Yeah, a hole. Said they took the toilet off the wall, squeezed through some metal balls and dipped. That's the headline they ran with. And if you don't know no better, you might buy it. But we ain't new to this. Let's look at what really went down. First off, how they even take that toilet off the wall. You ever been in the jail cell? That toilet ain't no basic bathroom setup. It's bolted, still, locked in place like Fort Knox. They talking like these dudes had a full Home Depot kit in there. Nah. Ain't no inmate got access to tools like that, not even a damn screwdriver. So you asking me to believe these dudes locked down somehow get the gear to dismantle prison plumbing? Stop it. That toilet ain't moving unless somebody on the inside help. Somebody who got keys, somebody who got paid to wear a badge, flashlight, and stun gun. Next up, let's talk about them balls. Behind that toilet was a hole, sure, but there were still balls blocking it, and not just any balls, tight balls. Now look at the size of them inmates. They ain't no little dudes. Ain't no way they squeezing through that space. You could maybe fit an arm through, maybe, but a whole body and a full jumpsuit and shoes? Nah. Even if they stripped down to a drawstring boxes and greased up, they still wasn't slipping through that. The hole wasn't made for humans, period. So the question becomes, did they really go through that hole, or is that just the cover story? A clean escape like that should have left behind signs, shredded clothes, cuts, blood, hell, even fingerprints or fabric. But guess what? There were none. You telling me all these grown men crawled through that tight-ass hole behind bars and not one of them left nothing behind? Nah, something smell off, way off. Now here's the wildest part. These dudes was gone for 8 hours before anybody even noticed. Let that sink in. 8 whole hours in a jail with cameras, guards, hourly checks, security doors, and ain't nobody know they was gone. What was y'all doing? Catching Z's, watching TikTok videos? That ain't no coincidence. That's negligence, or worse, that's collaboration. And peep this, security footage shows all of them running out at the same time. Now hold up, if they really had to crawl through some tiny hole one by one, it would have took time, like minutes, not seconds. A real escape like that, you ain't all hopping out like it's a parade. It's slow, quiet, and calculated. But on the footage, they bolting out in unison, like they got the green light from somebody on the inside. Let's talk security cams. The ones watching that area, they wasn't even being manned. Nobody was watching. Nobody alert. How convenient is that? Them cameras supposed to be the first line of defense. Instead, it was basically screensavers. If somebody turned a blind eye, they did it right when it counted. So what did Sheriff Susan Hudson say? She went on the news and blamed faulty locks. Said the doors malfunctioned, and that's how they got out. Faulty locks? Come on now. Locks didn't dismount that toilet. Locks ain't squeeze grown men through metal balls. Locks ain't keep cameras unmanned for 8 straight hours. That's called deflection, and we see straight through it. Then came the heat. WDSU anchor Travis Mackle wasn't falling for the banana in the tailpipe. He aired out the timeline, exposed that Hudson knew way earlier than she claimed.
What does it say? And I mean this respectfully, but you said, and I'm going to quote you here, that you observed those guys running out at 1 o'clock in the morning. What does it say for jailhouse safety and security when you see a jailbreak like that, but you fail to notify anyone, NOPD, the public, anyone?
We didn't say that.
What did you say then?
Yeah. We observed on the video later this morning. We had to pull that video.
He said you observed at 1 a.m.
So let's be clear. I said what we observed on the video through investigation. So yes, when they looked at the video this morning after the staff realized they were gone, my investigators found that at 1 a.m. that's what happened.
He didn't alert NOPD right away. He didn't tell the public. She tried to run out the clock on the truth like she was up 10 points in the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl. And Mackle, he pulled her card live, loud, and with receipts. That's when the city started paying attention. People asking questions. Why it takes so long to tell people? Why the lies? This wasn't no small time slip up. This was several inmates vanishing into thin air. If it ain't an inside job, it sure looked like one. Then came the political fallout. State Representative Amy Freeman stood up and said what everybody was thinking. She called for Sheriff Hudson's resignation, said this ain't just about the escape. It's about the whole system being broken.
You're wearing the new shirt, even though you said you didn't need a new shirt.
I never said that.
I think the sheriff has one job, and she's not doing that job very well. And I don't think she should bother the public with inappropriately doing a job, or her malfunction in the position is not acceptable.
A new call for accountability. State Rep Amy Freeman says Sheriff Susan Hudson should resign over the jailbreak. She claims the sheriff failed to fulfill her most fundamental responsibility of keeping inmates in custody. But Attorney General Liz Murrill says that her focus is not on a resignation, rather public safety being addressed.
The investigation is looking what happened before the inmates went over the wall. I don't think it's constructive to address it in that way. I think we need to be focused on what the task is in front of us.
Sheriff Hudson also responded, saying that she is focused on finding the escaped inmates and securing the Orleans Justice Center. She says she has no plans to resign and will rather lead this office through its current crisis.
And she ain't wrong. How many more times this got to happen before somebody gets held accountable? And if you think this was the first, think again. Back in 2009, the city had another escape. History repeating itself. Same problems, same excuses.
Not the first time the Orleans Parish Jail has been under fire for incidents involving its inmates. Back in 2009, Arthur Johnson escaped from the jail and was on the run for 3 weeks, even recorded a video of himself on Bourbon Street before being captured. Johnson was also involved in an incident in 2013 in which multiple videos of him and other inmates recorded inside the jail were released. The inmates could be seen using illegal drugs, brandishing a loaded gun, and using cell phones. No jail employees were fired or charged in that case.
This ain't no isolated incident. this is a culture, a system that used to faking it until they break it. Let's be real. The escape didn't happen in the vacuum. A toilet don't come off the wall by itself. Cameras don't start working for no reason. Nobody accidentally forgets to check yourself for 8 hours. Somebody helped. Maybe not directly, but somebody turned their head the other way when it mattered the most. By now, it's clear. That hole behind the toilet, that ain't how they got out, homie. It was a decoy, a distraction, something to show the public so they don't look deeper. But we looking deeper. We see under the surface, and what we see is dirty. This whole thing could have been stopped. Could have been caught. If anybody was doing their job, if anybody actually cared, the inmates would have not went with their move. Instead, they let it ride for 8 long hours. That's 2 meals, a full shift change, enough time to make it out the city. They was gone before the alarm even rang. By the time anyone noticed, it was way too late. So here's where we at. Several inmates escaped. 8-hour delay, lies from the top, in a system that's been broken for years. This ain't just about an escape. It's about how easy it is to look away when it's convenient. Our truth gets buried under PR statements. Sheriff Hudson tried to spin it. Mayor Cantrell tried to peace talk it. The chief of police tried to use damage control. But the people, they know better. So the question remains, who's going to be held responsible? Because until somebody answers for them 8 silent hours, the systems will stay guilty.
Suspects are considered to be armed and dangerous.
Bullshit, yeah, and I'm about to go with a 2. Yeah. Get over me. Alright.
You fresh out, huh?
Fresh out of jail. Stop playing.
What? Yeah.
We didn't know what was gonna happen.
Wednesday, Jamar Robinson's family celebrated his birthday.
Love you, miss you.
2 days later, they were in hiding after finding out that the man convicted of his murder had escaped from prison.
Just get all our family members out of the city. We had to get everyone out of the city. Didn't know what way we was going. Where we was going. Crying, devastated.
2 of Robinson's family members spoke with us over the phone. They asked not to be named for their safety.
The news, I see the boys pulling on the door. Like, this prison was just recently built. And you mean to tell me the doors was that easy to pull apart?
Family, I had to know I was going to give y'all the story about the inmates who broke out just 72 hours ago, right? Now, during that time, I was taking a mental break myself, but I was keeping up what was going on, and rest assured, you knew I was going to bring it to you guys' attention. I'm just at how we so used to this type of behavior that now on social media, it's a sports bet going on the last person who's going to be apprehended. Now, one of the last people who's still free is a man who some would say not to be F with. A man who accused of killing 4 people just so happens to break out just 2 days after one of his victims' birthday. And as I went over his case before bringing it to you guys' attention, I gotta be real. This man managed to escape life in jail twice, which we'll later discuss. And on the 3rd time, he took a plea in less than 2 months before his sentence. After the state been trying to fight against this man for almost a decade, he managed to escape prison. Now, while everybody making sports bets, you got real life victims' families who's fearing for their life, who don't know what to do as this suspect walked the streets free. Today, we're going to go in chronological order who got caught. Briefly talk about their charges, but I want to go over the charges of one man in full detail. A man accused of 4 bodies and a managed to escape jail just 2 months before being sentenced. I even saw one dude get caught after going on social media with his homie, drinking some apple juice, saying fresh out, like he ain't just break out. Not to mention, as the reward creeps up to $20,000, a $10,000 reward was given to a man who found one of the inmates just sleeping at the bus stop. He tapped him on his shoulder as he recorded before calling 911. Today, I briefly show you each scenario. But before we go over this one, I want you guys to remember, I won't give you no angle. I just give you the story. So with that being said, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. We'll jump right to it. A manhunt for inmates who escaped from a New Orleans jail by fleeing through a hole behind a toilet entered its 5th day on Tuesday. As officials increased the reward For the capture of the fugitives, 6 of the 10 remain at large as of Tuesday morning.
These stunning images from inside a New Orleans jail cell where 10 inmates, some charged with murder, escaped, sparking an urgent citywide manhunt. The toilet dislodged from a cell wall, exposing an opening. Scrawled on the wall above, "We innocent and too easy," with an arrow toward the hole where they escaped, out of view of the officer on duty. Authorities say it happened just after midnight when the inmates broke a lock on a cell door.
Earlier today, the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office discovered that multiple incarcerated individuals escaped from custody. What we know right now is that during a routine head count at 8:30 this morning, it was determined that several detainees were unaccounted for. Immediately upon discovery, OPSO activated emergency protocols and launched a coordinated response to locate and return these individuals to custody.
That had breached or escaped our custody. So those individuals right now were named. So 1 through 11, Antoine Massey, Linton Van Buren, Jermaine Donald, Leo Tate, Kendall Miles, Derek Groves, Corey Boyd, Gary Price, Robert Moody, DeCannon Dennis, and Keith Lewis. All of those suspects are considered to be armed and dangerous.
Fast forward Tuesday, May 20th, 2025, a New Orleans Parish maintenance worker was arrested on Monday on allegations he helped facilitate the escape of 10 inmates from the Orleans Justice Center last Friday. Sterling Williams, 33 years old, was booked on 10 counts of principal to simple escape and 1 count of misconduct. Sources say Williams is a maintenance worker who turned off the water to the cells where the inmates escaped. Williams claimed one of the inmates, Antonio Massey, threatened to shake him if he didn't turn off the water, according to sources. As you just saw, security footage shows the inmates escaped through the hole behind a toilet, broke through a wall, and exit through a supply dock. 3 cameras in the unit were reportedly turned off. OPSO has admitted the escape was aided by defective locks and possible external assistance. Now, the men range from 19 years old to 42 and face a variety of charges, including aggravated assault, domestic abuse, battery, and murder. New Orleans Police Department Superintendent Annie Kirkpatrick warned that the fugitives are dangerous in the news conference on Friday, but also urged the public not to panic. Now, before we go over the order on everyone arrested, I want to briefly go over everybody's criminal history, or at least why they was arrested. Gary Price, 21 years old, charged with attempted first-degree murder, domestic abuse, and aggravated assault. Gary was the 4th of the 10 inmates who was captured after he was seen on the neighboring Ring doorbell camera going into an abandoned home. Next is Linton Van Buren, 26 years old. He was arrested in 2021 for second-degree murder and robbery. Van Buren was still awaiting a trial date. The incident happened on November 29th on the 9700 block of Chief Highway. The victim was identified as Earl Brown, 34 years old. Next is Antonio Massey. He's 32 years old. That's the one the maintenance worker said threatened him with a shank. He was arrested for DA involving strangulation and theft of a vehicle. Massey has a history of refused DA charges. The next suspect is Leo Tate. Now, Tate just 31 years old. He was facing second-degree murder charges and attempt second-degree murder charges in connecting with the 2018 shooting in which a 19-year-old woman was killed and a 16-year-old was sent to the hospital. You see, he accepted a plea deal in 2018 and the murder-related charges were dismissed, but he was convicted of obstruction of justice and was sentenced to 10 years. The next is Corey Boyd, 20 years old. He was arrested back in May of 2024 and faces charges of second-degree murder, attempt second-degree murder, obstruction of justice, and threatening a law enforcement officer. Boyd was among 3 people who were charged in the death of a man who caught the group burglarizing cars. Next is the oldest of the group, 42-year-old Jermaine Donald. He'd been charged with second-degree murder and aggravated battery and possession of a firearm. Now, Kendall Miles, he's 20 years old. Miles was among the escapees, but was captured by the Louisiana State Police. Miles is facing charges of attention to conceal a weapon, introducing contraband into a prison, and possession of contraband.
I know a thing about it.
Miles previously escaped the Bridge City Center for Youth and was accused of robbing and carjacking a man in New Orleans in 2022. He was indicted on attempted murder and carjacking charges. Police said at the same time of Miles' arrest, he shot the carjacking victim twice before taking his vehicle. Now, the next inmate was Robert Moody. Moody, 21 years old, had been booked into the jail on weapons and drug charges. He was also charged with obscenity in July 2024, but he pled not guilty to all charges. Moody was captured on the 3500 block of 2nd Street with the help of a Crime Stoppers tip and is back in custody. Next is DeCannon Dennis, 24 years old, facing illegal weapon charges, extortion, kidnapping, armed robbery, and theft charges. He was apprehended on Dale Street. Now, last but not least, some would say would be considered the most dangerous person on this list, which is hard to believe. Derrick Groves, 27 years old, was convicted in October 2024 in connection with the killing of 2 people during Mardi Gras in 2018. But before we go over those charges and how he just now took a plea in 2024, I want to talk about Derrick's grandmother. His grandmother's name was Kim Marie Groves. On October 1994, a man named Davis, a New Orleans police officer, targeted Groves because she filed a complaint against Davis with the Internal Affairs Division of the New Orleans Police Department, alleging that he engaged in police brutality. Davis had a relationship with Hardy, a New Orleans drug dealer, in which Davis exchanged police protection for favors. Davis recruited Hardy and Hardy associate, causing to kill Groves. Davis and Hardy planned the murder and subsequent cover-up. Hardy was the trigger man who killed Groves. And how we know all this? Because his partner later testified against him in cooperation with the state for a lesser charge. You see, families for a victim identified as Jamar Robinson and Brian Jackson, as well as the New Orleans community, was excited after a unanimous and powerful verdict on a Friday, October 18, 2024, in the case of Derrick Groves. Groves was found guilty on all counts, 2 charges of second-degree murder and 2 charges of attempted second-degree murder. The conviction stems from the tragic events of Mardi Gras Day in 2018, when what should have been a day of celebration turned into one of unimaginable loss. The shooting claimed the lives of Jamar Robinson and Brian Jackson, while leaving the 2 other victims physically and emotionally scarred. The case garnered widespread attention, not only because of the horrific nature of the crime, but also due to the numerous trial attempts required to achieve the conviction. Initially, Groves was convicted in 2019, alongside his co-defendant Kendall Barnes. However, the passage of a new law required unanimous jury verdicts for felony cases permitted a retrial in January of 2023. A mistrial was declared after the one of 12 jurors inappropriately read media accounts of the case, and a subsequent trial in June 2023 ended with the deadlocked jury. The evidence against Groves was overwhelming. The prosecution, led by Assistant District Attorney Forrest Led and Zachary Creel, presented a compelling case. 3 eyewitnesses courageously testified, identifying Groves and his co-defendant as the gunman. Cell phone records further dismantled Groves' alibi, placing him at the scene of the crime, while ballistics testing confirmed use of an AK-47 during the attack of what should have been a joyous Mardi Gras family gathering. In July, he was set to be sentenced, and in return, he escaped jail just 2 months prior, leaving the family of the victims in fear for their lives.
Years in the making, a man accused of killing 4 people, 2 on Mardi Gras Day back in 2018. He was found guilty on several charges, including second-degree murder.
WDSU reporter Ariel Brumfield joins us live from the DA's office with how this verdict is impacting the families involved. Ariel.
Well, you guys, this guy has hurt a lot of people, and it's been several years at this point. Investigators in this case says that Derrick Groves, he is going away for a very long time.
FBI Homicide Unit Chief.
A guilty verdict now landed 6 years in the making. Derrick Groves, a man accused of killing 2 people Mardi Gras Day in 2018 and injuring several others, pled guilty on Wednesday to several charges.
A jury returned a unanimous and powerful verdict in the case of Derrick Groves. Now, Groves was found guilty on all counts, 2 counts of second-degree murder and 2 counts of attempted second-degree murder.
Investigators say Groves opened fire on a house party on St. Claude with AK-47 rifles, killing Jamar Robinson and Byron Jackson. 3 eyewitnesses and cell phone records helped dismantle Groves' alibi. In the trial, District Attorney Jason Williams says was nothing short of complications for the prosecutors and the victims' families.
The weight of their grief has been immense and a constant companion through every hearing daily, every delay, every setback. And while no court decision can bring back their loved ones or fully heal their wounds. This verdict provides a measure of justice.
But we learned Thursday justice is being served once again. 2 other victims Groves is accused of killing, Tyrone Francis and Woodrow Smith.
Derek Groves is a heinous criminal who ran terror down in the lower Ninth Ward for well over a decade. And that reign of terror has been ended. In fact, today, Derek Groves pled to 2 more murder cases.
Groves pled guilty to 2 counts of manslaughter and 2 counts of second-degree murder. And we're told Groves will be serving his sentences consecutively.
No one tell us anything. We had to leave work. We didn't know what was going to happen.
Wednesday, Jamar Robinson's family celebrated his birthday.
Love you, miss you.
2 days later, they were in hiding after finding out that the man convicted of his murder had escaped from prison.
Just get all our family members out of the city. We had to get everyone out of the city. Didn't know what way we was going. Where we was going. Crying, devastated.
2 of Robinson's family members spoke with us over the phone. They asked not to be named for their safety. Robinson and another man, Byron Jackson, were shot and killed on Mardi Gras in 2018. Derek Groves was arrested for their murders. Late Friday morning, someone they knew called the family and told them that a group of inmates had broken out of Orleans Justice Center. Groves was one of them.
No one notified us. No one tell us anything. We had to leave work. We didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know how Derek Groves felt like with this process of us. Either he was coming for us. We didn't know.
They say they went to a nearby police station and 2 officers escorted them home. They grabbed what they could, got the family's young kids, including Robinson's son, from school. Then they left. By that time, Groves had been out for hours.
We just didn't know what to do at that point. And I'm so angry with the Orleans Parish prison because it's like, when I look at the news, I see the boys pulling on the door. Like, this prison was just recently built. And you mean to tell me the doors was that easy to pull apart?
Groves was convicted of killing Robinson and Jackson in 2019. But the jury wasn't unanimous, and a Supreme Court ruling ended up throwing out the verdict because of it. The next trial in 2023 was declared a mistrial. The next one, later that year, ended with a deadlocked jury. Then, finally, in October of last year, Groves was convicted again. His sentencing was set for July.
It's just crazy. It's like a soul that's not being healed. Because every time we move on from this, something come up.
Now, with Groves on the run, Robinson's family is trying to figure out what to do about their jobs and the kids' school. They're planning to stay hidden while they wait for justice again.
And so we're clear. There's a lot of false rumors going around. 6 of the 10 inmates as of Tuesday, May 20th, 2025, is still at large. Derek Groves, Antonio Massey, Linton Van Buren, Jermaine Donald, Corey Boyd, and Leo Tate. I hope we was able to break this down to a T without it being too overwhelming. Fam, let me know how you guys feel about this one. This was the story of inmates who was able to break out of jail with the help of a custodian worker. Talk to me.
Is involved in so many cases of violence.
Derek Woo Groves, a 4-time convicted killer at 27 years old, still on the loose after climbing through a hole behind a jailhouse toilet and scaling a fence to freedom early Friday morning with 9 other men. His criminal past, the most violent of the 10 men to escape the Orleans Justice Center Friday. District Attorney Jason Williams prosecuted Groves himself. His escape has made him uneasy.
Look, these have not been the most relaxing days since I found out from the media that he was a part of this jailbreak.
Groves was convicted last October of killing Byron Jackson and Jamar Robinson on Mardi Gras Day in 2018 in New Orleans' 9th Ward. He was given 2 mandatory minimum sentences of life in prison. Groves was tried 3 separate times in the killings. One was overturned due to being convicted being a non-unanimous jury. Another was a mistrial. During the third, the state secured a conviction.
when you don't have every single witness come forward. We're able to use the words and videos and posts of Groves himself from his own social media, in which they were bragging about what they did and making threats prior to.
Groves pleaded guilty.
Killers locked up, but damn, they get 3-4 times try to get a man up off the street. You don't got the evidence the first or the second time. You need the third. That's crazy, bro.
To 2 counts of manslaughter for the July 2017 killing of Woodrow Smith and in the killing of a separate victim after his October conviction. Groves also has a criminal past in drug dealing in federal and state courts and stands accused of battering a correctional employee last year. Groves was awaiting sentencing in the manslaughter cases at the time of his escape. Groves' aunt, Jasmine Groves, maintains her nephew's innocence in the killings. She says Derek Groves has been stabbed 3 times while in jail. She says he never should have been able to escape had the jail been staffed properly. She adds that her family was more comfortable when he was housed at the Louisiana State Penitentiary.
Just think about how horrible OPP have to be if you have more of a settled mind. With him, it ain't going to.
Groves calls on her nephew to turn himself in, out of a priority for his safety.
So in my heart, I just feel, and I'm praying to the Lord, he have him covered and protected, and I pray that they don't try to kill him.
Derek Groves is one of 6 men who remain at large after Friday's jailbreak. Authorities encourage anyone with information about their whereabouts to call Crime Stoppers at 504-822-1111.
Lady, you tell me where he at. Y'all the ones let them people out of there. We all kidding.
Thing we found out today, which was interesting, is we were saying, how much help did they have? We've learned of a maintenance worker at the jail arrested, accused of helping them to get out. And here with more is a retired judge from Orleans Parish and criminal district court, Julian Parker, who also has just recently announced to run for parish sheriff. Welcome, Judge. Thank you for coming on. This maintenance worker, let me start with that actually, because we say, oh, what kind of help did they have? 33 years of age, and facing all these charges of helping these guys to get out. What would you say about, they needed, I guess, to knock the toilet off the wall. They needed some help. And I think this guy says they threatened to stab him, but now they're charging him.
They had to cut the rebar in the wall to get out.
Yeah.
There wasn't enough room to get out between the bars, so he had to have a Dremel or some sort of an electric saw to cut those bars. And those things, I have one, and they make noise. They make a high-pitched whine that would have been heard by whoever was supposed to be on guard.
Right. That's the other thing. I was saying that from the beginning. Like, it was kind of a half a joke. We said we have these cameras in front of our house. You get an alert on your phone if someone walks in front if you want. Someone actually had to be monitoring the system there and would have just known that they were running across the lawn, or to your point, would have heard them cutting through the wall. I mean, it seems to be more than just this maintenance worker involved in at least turning a blind eye, right?
I would think so.
How many people you think would have been involved in something like this?
Oh, I don't know. I think at least the one that was apprehended, the person who was supposed to be monitoring the videos, who just by happenstance went to get her lunch when these guys decided they'd walk out of the jail, and maybe one more person, because they didn't cut their way out of there with sharpened toothbrushes. This took some equipment and some tools.
What do you think?
That had to be smuggled into the jail.
Right. What do you think, first, sometimes we say, what are the lessons learned, how to prevent this from happening again? What do you think are the bigger picture implications in terms of trust in the system and things like that come away from an incident like this? Does it have long-term implications?
Unfortunately, I think so, but there are things that can be done to remedy this. First of all, the sheriff blamed part of the problem on the fact that there was a broken lock on the door. Well, we're going to hire a full-time locksmith, and any maintenance crew that works in the jail is going to be supervised by a deputy sheriff. Another thing is these inmates were housed on the first floor. They were all high-risk inmates. These were not shoplifters or petty criminals or people who were arrested for drunken public. So we're not going to house high-risk inmates on the first floor. They're going to be on the fourth floor, and they're going to be in a special housing unit. And when we say high-risk inmates, we also include those inmates who have been convicted and are awaiting transportation to the Department of Corrections. This special housing unit is going to be supervised by the best guards and the best deputy sheriffs. No staff member or deputy is going to leave a post until they're relieved by another staff member or deputy. And this especially applies to meal breaks. I mean, it's just hard to believe that somebody left for a meal break and now we have the whole city on edge,
right,
and a multi-million-dollar manhunt going on with the FBI, the ATF, the sheriff's office, the police department, because the video monitors weren't being monitored. So your video monitors must be constantly monitored.
Right.
At night, we should have bed checks every 16 minutes. Every deputy should have a flashlight. When I'm the sheriff, if you don't have a flashlight and you come to work for me, I'll buy you a flashlight. Finally, the loading dock should be guarded and monitored 24 hours a day, not just by video monitors, but there should be personnel stationed at these loading docks, which is where the inmates got out of the building.
Right.
Now, there's also talk about building another fence around the building, which I think that's also a good idea. It should be a high fence with lots of razor wire.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our new
during Specs Rosé sale. Cheers to savings.
Being the man on the inside who helped 10 inmates escape. The worker allegedly turned off the water to allow the inmates to break open a hole and get to freedom. Now, on the outside, the search continues for several inmates. Another escaped New Orleans inmate is back in custody. This one's accused of attempted murder. And we have the moment his arrest was caught on camera. This image per WVUE on Instagram. He and several other inmates made a jailbreak that has been seen by millions on security camera footage from a jail in New Orleans. The majority of the men that you see running free are still on the run right now, including multiple accused of murder.
There is no way people can get out of this facility without there being some type of lapse in security. There's no way. It's almost impossible, not completely, but almost impossible for anybody to get out of this facility without help from the outside.
That video, per WWL-TV, the sheriff says it would take a lot to escape her jail. But what the inmates apparently wrote on the wall on their way out begs to differ. And now hundreds of members of law enforcement across multiple states are on the hunt for those still at large. We're on the case presented by Law and Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. The local sheriff in New Orleans said that she would be investigating her staff to see if those inmates had any help in their escape from her jail. And it turns out that a maintenance worker is now under arrest, accused of helping turn the water off, which played a key role in allowing those 10 inmates to escape. Sterling Williams is 33 years old. He's a maintenance worker at the jail, and he allegedly turned off the water, which allowed the inmates to move the toilet in front of the hole that they carved into the wall. This is his mugshot per the Louisiana Attorney General. An inmate allegedly told Williams to turn the water off, and the Attorney General says instead of reporting that inmate, he turned the water off, allowing the 10 to carry out their plan. Williams is now booked on 10 counts of principal to simple escape and 1 count of malfeasance in office. Jail records show he is not being held at the facility where he once worked, but is now being held in a separate parish. Here are those inmates, and at the time of this recording, you can see several of the 10 are still on the run. And there are major questions about what kind of help these inmates may have received to pull off this jailbreak. And there's also questions about who may be helping them on the outside. I want you to look at this picture. This is of Robert Moody, one of the first inmates to be arrested after the jailbreak. And you can see when he was arrested, he wasn't in prison garb anymore. He found street clothes. Moody only made it, though, about 7 miles from the jail. Moody was in jail on weapons and drug charges. Another inmate that was taken back into custody, also wearing full street clothes, ready to blend in with everybody else, was Kendall Miles. This is a screen grab from video posted by the group Project NOLA, which run cameras throughout the city and uses facial recognition technology in hopes of cutting down on crime. This is Kendall Miles walking through New Orleans' French Quarter. That is right in the heart of the tourist district of the city. Here's Miles being taken back into custody by Louisiana State Police. They say that Miles tried to run when they spotted him. The French Quarter, again, only a short distance from jail, so no one really has made it seems, that far from the jail when they were arrested. According to WDSU-TV, Miles is facing charges of attempted murder and carjacking for allegedly shooting a victim twice and taking his car. Another inmate captured is DeKeenan Dennis. He was arrested in the same area of New Orleans as Robert Moody, just about 7 miles from the jail, and Dennis is accused of armed robbery and illegal possession of weapons. Then there's Gary Price. He's accused of attempted murder as well. He was captured in East New Orleans. He was found in a vacant home. KVUE got this surveillance image from a home. They posted it on Instagram. This is from across the street, and you can see in the top left corner of your screen, law enforcement taking Price back into custody. None of the inmates who at this point have been captured made it that far from the jail they escaped from. But a big problem for law enforcement is just how long of a head start they had because of how long it took the sheriff and her deputies to realize that 10 inmates were gone from their jail. This is video from the Orleans Parish Sheriff posted on social media showing inmates around midnight on May 16th. And you can see the inmates yanking on a jail door to break it open. And also some inmates walk by, some act like they don't see anything. Others eventually come over and help that inmate in orange break it open. And it only took less than a minute and a half from the beginning of that inmate yanking that door to it eventually breaking open and then the inmates being able to get in through that cell door. Obviously, when you're watching this, you might be asking yourself as well, where are the guards? And
how significant a role do you think cybersecurity plays in protecting your team's safety?
It's anyone watching this video? I'll get to that in just a moment. But as this video continues on, as soon as the door breaks open, the inmates pile into one of the cells and then out they go through the back, as you see in the video here. The next piece of video may be hard to see here as well, but we'll zoom in on it. We'll show you. You can see some of the inmates running across a highway as they make their way away from the jail. Now, as to why it didn't seem like there were any guards that were watching any of this play out, what looked like in plain sight in the video when you watch it, well, the sheriff says the person who was responsible for watching the overnight feed of video stepped out to grab a bite to eat at the time that those inmates started their escape. It wasn't until 8:30 the next morning that authorities realized that 10 inmates were gone. Remember, what we just showed you of that escape, that was around midnight the night before. Now, this is what the authorities found in the jail cell. That toilet pulled back, pushed aside, leaving a big hole for the inmates to get out. And also, as you probably have seen by now, the inmates left some parting words for the sheriff and the deputies and the guards and everybody who ran that jail facility, like, quote, "Too easy, LOL," and also a smiley face with its tongue out and some more colorful language that we can't show you on air here. Now, it wasn't until later that day that the local sheriff posted this on her X account, letting the public know about the jailbreak. The hours it took for authorities to let the public know that violent offenders were on the run, that has created a lot of anger in New Orleans, and a lot of people are criticizing the sheriff. The sheriff also said that they're investigating their own staff to see if these inmates got any help from the inside. The sheriff's also blaming defective locks for the break. Here's part of what she said in this video per Fox News.
We're still gathering information. We are investigating our own to find out exactly what happened and where those lapses were. But there were supervisors on duty. There were lower level folks on duty, and they all had a job to do.
The authorities also say the inmates used blankets to get over the barbed wire on the outside fencing. Of the inmates that are left, 4 of them are charged with second-degree murder. Corey Boyd, Lenton Van Buren, Jermaine Donald, and Derek Groves. Groves killed 2 people on Mardi Gras in 2018. He also shot 2 others. He was convicted of that crime last year, and he was awaiting sentencing, which is why he was at the jail and not in a state DOC facility. WWL TV reports that the families of his victims, they've gone into hiding, and they also say the authorities never contacted them about him escaping. Lenton Van Buren is another one of the murder suspects at large. He was arrested in 2021 for a murder. He's pleaded not guilty. Jermaine Donald is accused of second-degree murder, and Corey Boyd is charged with second-degree murder for allegedly shooting a man who tried to stop a car burglary, according to NOLA.com, in 2024. Not only are murder victims' families going into hiding, but also the local district attorney in New Orleans told local media that he has staff members leaving town with their families because some of the people who escaped are people who they prosecuted. There is plenty of blame likely to go around for how this could happen, but specifically who should be blamed for this depends on who you ask in New Orleans right now. The sheriff is taking a lot of heat. There are calls for her to resign. She, though, says this jail has had problems that go beyond her job. She says the jail is only 60% of the staff that it needs. She also believes that the inmates may have had help from the inside. As far as why it, though, took so many hours for her agency to let the public know that these violent offenders were free, she claims they needed time to figure out what happened once they realized the inmates were gone, which again was several hours after the jailbreak. Louisiana's governor is putting a lot of the blame on those who are in charge of the jail, and that includes the sheriff. Here is part of what he said per Fox.
I've also ordered the Department of Corrections to audit the Orleans Parish Correctional Facility for compliance with basic jail guidelines.
Nowadays, after the inmates became fugitives, the reward is rising for people to come forward with information on the whereabouts of the remaining fugitives. Right now, the FBI is offering a $10,000 reward, and the ATF and Crime Stoppers are also offering rewards of $5,000. Another issue, according to the governor, is that several of the inmates were set to be transferred to a state prison to serve sentencing, but they were still being held in the jail facility, which is meant to be temporary. The governor said all DOC inmates at that facility are now being moved out. As for the fugitives who have been caught thus far, they are being taken to facilities away from New Orleans. The state police posted these pictures of Gary Price being taken to what they said was a, quote, secure state facility. Joining us now to talk about this is Justin Paperny, prison consultant. Thank you for taking the time to be with us here on Law and Crime. I guess since this story started, just what has shocked you the most when you see, especially that video of all of the inmates running out the back of the prison, or the jail, excuse me?
What shocks me is the terrible infrastructure within these prisons, and everyone knows that these things could happen. People talk about them, but there's no correction or change. Then what does not surprise me is the continuous blaming. You have the sheriff blaming somebody else, the governor blames somebody else. Without accountability and change, these things are going to continue to happen. These prisons and jails, they're broke down. The infrastructure is terrible. There are protocols that are not followed. And you have prisoners who will study the routines of guards, what time they go to work, how engaged are they, what time do they open the doors. And without proper protocols, you have people convicted of violent crimes able to escape. Until there's accountability and change at the top, we can expect more of these escapes threatening communities across the country.
Yeah, because the headline video out of the gate was people running out the back of the prison, and that was but to me, watching the first inmate yank on a door, and it took him about 1:30 to break it open, and then they're all able to go into that cell, which is apparently where the hole was, and then get out. And I'm watching that, on one hand, how flimsy of a door that was. It takes 1:30 to do it, but then where are the guards? What do you make of some of the staffing of the place?
Yeah, it's not the door. The door is the obvious blame, but the door could have been fixed a long time ago. What has not been fixed is this culture. So what happens is you have inside knowledge. So 16 years ago today, I was released from prison in a minimum security camp. Even in camps, dudes can walk off. They're not going to stop you. The difference is those are minimum security defendants. And for nonviolent crimes, in this case, these are, I read murder, aggravated assault, very serious crimes. So what happened is there's inside knowledge. They are communicating together. They know the behavior and routines of staff. They wait for one mistake, one moment of laziness or nonchalantness or total disregard for their job, where they're going to seize this opportunity to escape, knowing they're going to have several hours. So they're studying for weeks and months, and then they seize that opportunity. And to have several hours go by without anybody knowing, if that doesn't tell you there was a terrible breakdown in protocols and structure and strategy, then we need to have another conversation. It was the inside knowledge that allowed this to happen.
What surprised me too is that, I mean, these are some inmates that are, in one case, one of them is convicted of a double murder, but others are accused of murder, attempted murder. I mean, these are seriously violent people, and they're being held at a jail. Why not be held at a state facility?
Myriad reasons, right? They could be waiting to get transferred there. The jails could have convinced themselves they're able to secure them. Oftentimes people get misclassified. Sometimes people go to the wrong prison. Mistakes are made when protocols aren't followed. So you can expect all of these agencies to say the same thing. We saw the same thing in MDC in New York with Diddy and Sam Bankman-Fried after Epstein, hung himself. There's going to be changes. There's going to be accountability. We're going to make new policy. Instead, it is blaming and excusing. It's nobody's fault. And as a result of that, someone convicted of murder and other crimes, they're out in the community now hoping and wishing that through lockdowns, reconstructing timelines, hopefully they get tips from the community that they're going to find these people. The problem is the longer these people are away from prison and not caught, the more violent and scary they actually become, because they're truly in need of resources. So it is a tone at the top issue, whether it's a federal, state, or local prison. And until these changes, we'll be on in 2 months, 3 months, 4 months talking about in escape in these broken down, dilapidated prisons and jails. And the blaming and excusing will continue.
Yeah, I want to get into some of the blaming and who's to blame for that, because we've heard, to the sheriff, it may be reasons it happened, but then you kind of hear it and it's excuses, especially when you think of how long it took them to actually realize that 10 inmates and some very violent people
it's absurd.
Were missing. Another part is, and I know it's cliche in these conversations to bring up Shawshank Redemption, so forgive me, but you think of someone carving a hole in a wall in a jail, and it's done very quietly, very secretly. How do you think they were able to do this? I mean, how difficult would it be to actually create the type of hole that they did behind the toilet to then escape out the back?
So it's not hard if they know they have 2 to 3 hours a day to dig this hole. It's not hard if they know the exact routine and vulnerabilities of prison staff. It's not hard if they know that the prison or jail is understaffed. It's hard to get people to work there. People are underappreciated, underpaid, which can compel a staff member to go to a training to understand protocols, but they do not implement them. So in prison, I know because I was there, even though it was in a camp, you can study and learn the mannerisms of staff, guards, other prisoners, and you can create a routine around it. So it probably didn't take them. There was probably one leader that said, hey, there could be an opportunity here. Would you like to get involved? Sure, you're in for double murder. This is your only opportunity to see freedom again. Let's work together over the coming weeks and months until we get transferred to a higher security prison and take our opportunity. Then they team up, they partner, they study, they assess, and they chip away at it every single day. No different than Andy Dufresne did in Shawshank Redemption. And then it's like, we're ready. Let's party. Let's seize our opportunity. And they knew they had a window, and they're still free. They're doubling the reward from $5,000 to $10,000. Problems follow. They continue to be free. It is a total disaster and nightmare. And here's what I'm expecting at some point: someone to say, it's my fault. This will never happen again. Until then, they're never going to fix the infrastructure. Staff is going to be undertrained. They're not going to follow protocol. And I pray and hope someone in the community isn't hurt as a result of this failed leadership at this jail.
Is it uncommon, because going back to the inmate who was yanking on the door, I mean, is it uncommon in that area for there not to be a guard? I know it was after lockdown at 10:30, but the lights were still on, and there didn't seem to be any authority figure whatsoever in the space where all these inmates were being kept.
It is not uncommon, right? Even in a penitentiary, people are going to go to bed, the lights are going to shut off, the cells are going to close. They knew exactly how much time they had to a T to make this hole in the wall. They knew when a guard would be walking by to do what's called a standing count. They knew exactly what was going to happen because they're studying the routines, the vulnerabilities, the tendencies of staff. So I can tell you down to a second, they knew how much time they had, and they were very calculated. And unfortunately for people in this community, they were successful.
And you kind of go into the sheriff. She's talked about, there was defective locks that were part of the problem, the staffing issues that, financially it would take millions of dollars to fix the doors. Why? And for as expensive as it is, I'm sure it wasn't a headline issue like this jail in New Orleans up until these inmates were leaving. If it was such a big problem, why wasn't it something that the sheriff would have talked about maybe in a campaign or had made a key issue in local politics for New Orleans, knowing that they were holding some very violent people there?
So when the lock is the visible issue, that's what people are going to blame. The invisible issue is this culture and the blaming. So of course, if she claims that she brought attention to this lock, if she even did, you're going to have the prison say, we're broke. We have no money for infrastructure. We don't have money for staff. And of course, you'll have prison or unions who want to hire more staff, more security. So again, you're going to continue to hear this. It was a broken lock. I brought attention to it. It's just the obvious issue. The real problem is staff isn't trained, protocols aren't followed, and you continue to have people blame. It's interesting. You talk about the millions of dollars that it would cost to fix these prisons and jails. Everyone appears to be concerned about public safety. What is the cost of one of these prisoners? They've only caught one, as I understand it. What is the cost if one of these prisoners hurts or kills someone? I can assure you it's worth more than millions of dollars plus the lawsuits to come. So it's sort of like penny wise, pound foolish, and then they're reactive. This will continue to happen. They're not fixing up jails. They're not properly training staff. They're not properly setting tone at the top. And in the end, I hope people in the community bring them forward. I have no doubt they have enablers who are absolutely helping them. So they're checking with I would say the Department of Justice or the marshals. They're checking with friends, family, old associates, gang affiliations. It is a absolute nightmare, and I hope people do the right thing and turn them in.
Yeah. And I also think too, with the kind of the millions of dollars argument, do you find like in your work, when you see some of the facilities that are vulnerable because maybe they haven't been upgraded in a long time, that the public just doesn't have an appetite to spend the money on a corrections facility?
That may be the best question I've been asked in 2025. The answer is yes. You look at spending cuts across the country right now with DOJ and others, spending cuts, cutting vital programs for people who are not in prison, which then means they're cutting vital programs for people in prison. There's very little sympathy for people in prison. People will say, if you were so concerned about infrastructure or your health or the type of prison environment you were going to live in, you probably shouldn't have broken the law. So yes, there's only so much money we have. And the last thing they're going to do is allocate it to a prison and jail. If they had money, they'd want to hire more staffing and perhaps do better training, including some mental health training, not just for prisoners, but also for staff. And until these issues are resolved and fixed, it's just going to be a continued problem of blaming. And it's unfortunate. They don't recognize that spending some money now would lead to what they truly care about: security, control, and higher public safety, because it would ensure people can't escape. Now, in the federal prison system, they'll just close the prison. I served time in a prison in the BOP, Bureau of Prisons. I think deduced it would be $30 or $40 million to fix it. They're like, no good, we're going to close it. We're going to move these prisoners to another prison. That's fine. They should be closing them if they're not in a position to fix them. Don't house them there, because you have smart prisoners with criminal minds who can escape with lazy staff who turns the other way because they're not trained.
Do you also find, as far as like the appetite from the public, I would also think for a lot of the agencies that run a county jail, that it's a sheriff's office that's in charge of it, and they have a lot on their plate when it comes to law enforcement on the outside. Do you see the appetite also from a lot of these sheriffs to say, like, okay, the jail, that's not something the public really comes in touch with? I would imagine that they're not going to spend the money on the jail either, that you don't see the appetite from the sheriff to take action.
If they didn't have money to fix a lock or hole.
Let me guess. You're thinking about going to therapy. And as a therapist myself, of course I'm going to say that's a Great idea. But first, let's talk about the things they don't tell you. First of all, you're going to say, I'm fine, like 300 times.
They couldn't call a handyman to fix this. Imagine their appetite for spending tens of millions of dollars to fix up a broken jail, right? Or prison, and then properly trained staff. No, it's easy to be reactive, to blame, claim things are going to get better. In time, unfortunately, we will forget about it until it pops up again, and we're going to be discussing it again. And the same people in a different state with the same DNA and makeup and career are going to say the same thing. It's just the way it is. People have asked me that. Could they have fixed it up? Well, they could have fixed the hole. How much would that have cost? Had zero interest other than blaming. And I pray they are caught, because I'm telling you, the longer we've covered it, the longer they are free, the scarier they become, the fewer resources they have. And it could compel people with a criminal mind who have already killed to do it again, because they've tasted freedom. They like it. They want it. And they will do anything to keep it.
Yeah, Derek Groves, I believe, is the one who's been already convicted of a double murder, and Mardi Gras was awaiting sentencing, and he is out, and the families of his victims have gone into hiding, knowing that he is free right now. Lastly, for the people who have been caught at the time of this recording, there are 4 out of the 10 who are back in custody. What is the reality for them when they return to, they've been taken to what the state police call a secure state facility? What is that? What is life going to look like for them now compared to how they had it before?
Well, they're going to be admired or lionized by a lot of prisoners who said, I can't believe you escaped. Good for you. It's going to impress a lot of people. The prison or jail, they don't want to be embarrassed again. So there is going to be continuous lockdown, isolated, total segregation. They're not going to be going anywhere. And when sentenced, they're going to go to the highest security prison possible. Even in transit, which occasionally is where some escapes can happen when you're in shackles and chains, they will be looked at and treated differently because of this escape. So there's always going to be a mark on their back because of that, which eventually will lead, and I hope this brings people in the community some happiness. They will always be more isolated. There will be more scrutiny on them because of this escape. Even in a minimum security camp, you escape, they catch you, you're going to a higher security prison, you are fenced in. There will always be more scrutiny on them because of it. And of course, it will impact their eventual release or eligibility to go home based on this conduct. They will all be in prison longer because of it.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my last question, because there are certainly the ones who are convicted of attempt or accused of attempted murder, accused of murder, convicted of murder, but then there's also some drugs and guns offenses on here, and I don't know what their priors look like, but there are people who they weren't going to spend the rest of their life in prison. How many more years could someone facing a drug and weapons charge, still very, very serious charges, but now they're looking at a longer sentence?
Right, you have the crime of escaping, and then you have potential crimes that have existed in the community, stealing, taking advantage of people, or robbing cars. You continue to pile onto the crimes. So then when you get sentenced, and we could argue drug sentencing in this country, both federal and state, has become more sympathetic. War on drugs has passed. Marijuana is legal in many states, including California. So something that could have been maybe 2, 3, or 4 years with good conduct, eligibility for an early release. Now they have new charges in a higher security prison. Perhaps, look, when you're presented with an opportunity in prison, and I presume they were presented with an opportunity that said, hey, you can do 5 years, or we have some inside knowledge that tells us we're going to have at least 4 hours before they find out we've left. It's worth it, man. Roll the dice. Let's try. And they seize the opportunity, and there are going to be consequences. But you're absolutely right. Something that could be 2, 3, 4 years can now be 10 years in prison, in a higher security prison.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens. I mean, there's so many agencies across now multiple states in the South looking for the rest of the 10 inmates who have escaped. Justin Paperny, prison consultant. It's always great to have you on Law and Crime. Thanks for joining us to talk about this one.
Good to see you.
If you want the latest news in the streets, join us and tune in for the tea. Breaking news with integrity. So tell your friends and your family. It's the Lovely Tea TV show, bringing you good tea and good vibes. It's the Lovely Tea TV show. Be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
Hey tea sippers, good morning. I hope you guys are doing good today. So there has been some really eerie things going down in NOLA recently. For y'all who don't know what NOLA is New Orleans, Louisiana. So what I noticed was earlier this month, this video went viral on TikTok of this man. He was trying to bump elbows with another gentleman on the street. And so it started up a conversation about destiny swapping, because he could have easily just bumped the man's elbow himself, but he was inviting the man to bump his elbow, almost like in Sinners, the movie, where the vampires could not go into the home or into the club unless they were invited in. Remember the Asian lady, she's the one who invited the vampires into the club in Sinners, and then they wreaked havoc.
What y'all doing? Just step aside and let me on in now.
Why you need him to do that? You big and strong enough to push past us?
Well, that wouldn't be too polite now, would it, Miss Annie? Smoke.
Don't talk to him. You talking to me right now. Why you can't just walk your big ass up in here without an invite, huh? Go ahead. Admit to it.
Admit to what?
That you dead.
So this is how I felt when I first watched the video of the man doing the destiny swapping in New Orleans. And when I tell you this went viral, a lot of people were having discussions about this. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys that clip right here, along with some other people discussing it as well. Check this out.
Yeah. Come on. I can't do it. Elbow to elbow. I can't do it. Come on, boys. Won't you shake a cold sinner's hand?
You already know how I feel about New Orleans, but what's happening there now is a lot scarier than just a building of like ghost nuns. Have you seen the viral video of the guy playing the Shadow Man music because there's a man on Bourbon Street trying to get him to rub elbows with him so that he can tell his fortune to him or whatever? But the guy won't do it because he said the Shadow Man taught him better. Smart dude. What he's trying to do is destiny swap. Apparently there are these people that can sense when someone comes by that has like a light energy, meaning that they know that whatever they've got is something good, whether it's like wealth or the ability to be like a psychic or something like that. And they seek them out and they try to get them to bump elbows so that they can swap their destinies, meaning he gets whatever you got and you end up with him. But why the elbow? Why doesn't he just like touch him on the shoulder or something? Because in voodoo and in like all kinds of like history way back, they believe that the elbow is like a hinge. Your elbow switches directions and changes where things can go, and it changes up easily. It's like a hinge of fate, and a quick bump of that can change their destiny and yours. And it's never a good thing when they ask you to do it. They always want what you have. Effects of these are slow acting. You'll start feeling like things aren't going your way anymore, like everything's bad, everything's out to get you. You might start feeling unwell for no reason. You get a cold you just can't shake. You may lose your job or lose your home. Meanwhile, the guy you bumped elbows with is now on a winning streak. Protect your elbows. And if you think someone did knock your elbow, go home, wash your hands, wash your elbows in salt water. Then light a white candle and say, what's mine is mine, and what's theirs shall return to them.
So we should be floating to
them.
By now, we've all seen that very viral video of that man in New Orleans trying to bump elbows with the guy to tell his future. Everybody is talking about destiny swapping, which this is a form of trying to destiny swap. But nobody is talking about how the dead walk amongst the living on Bourbon Street, French Quarters, New Orleans. And they look just like us. And sometimes these hands get stuck onto people, like an attachment, like a cancer. And these people still have partially their minds and they want it off. And all it takes is one touch, one transfer of energy, and that spirit will jump on your ass. I don't know how many different ways I can tell you New Orleans is a portal. New Orleans is a portal. New Orleans is a portal, especially in the French Quarters and specifically on Bourbon. It's so bad when I go, keep salt in my pocket. So if I accidentally bump into anybody, if anybody touches me, if I touch something and I get the heebie-jeebies, I throw salt over my shoulder. I walk out of places backwards. Every Goosebump book that you read as a child about werewolves, loogaroos, haints, vampires. Yeah, they all down there in New Orleans to this day. If you know, you know.
The situation in New Orleans about the elbow bump. And it's nothing new. Honestly, it's nothing new. Yes, it was a form of him attempting to destiny swap with the young man. See, the spirit needs permission to destiny swap. It needs permission to attach to you. And that was him asking for permission. Now, I'm glad that man knew better. I'm glad because it wasn't going to end well for him if he did that. New Orleans raised me. I was always taught, do not shake hands. Do not bump fists. Do not let somebody hug you, especially if you are out at night, particularly in the French parts. And no, I'm not making this shit up. Just get you some sea salt, put in a Ziploc bag. And anybody touch you, you wash your hands and you wash that area too. And when you go back to the room, or you go back home, or anywhere you have to walk inside of a building, make sure you turn around and you walk backwards. Because the spirit don't like to face you. That way you keep it from entering with you. This is not story time. This is reality.
The elbow voodoo, why you're not supposed to touch other people's elbows in voodoo rituals or in voodoo itself. There's one specific thing that you have to avoid. It's rubbing elbows with somebody. Crazy. Yeah. So there's this video that went viral on TikTok, and he's trying to convince a stranger that he can tell him his future. All he has to do is rub elbows with him. So the whole purpose of it and the reason it holds so much danger is because if you rub elbows with somebody, they can switch their destiny with you. Yeah, it's called a destiny swap. They say people like that, they can have a sense of when somebody carries a good destiny or they carry certain spiritual power, and they'll target them specifically and they'll go up to them and say, they'll try to trick them to touching elbows. The elbow is like a hinge. Okay. So you can imagine it's like a hinge to your body, right? It can move different ways really quickly and it opens like a door. So when you rub elbows with somebody, you could be trading your destiny with them.
All right, so you guys just saw those videos. So now in various traditions, especially like in African spirituality and voodoo and hoodoo, physical contact can cause a transfer. I've talked about this before on this channel about the transfer of energy. That's why you have to be careful, you know, who you allow to come into your personal space. If you do not feel comfortable with that person, if your spirit is not vibing with that person, do not allow them to hug you. Do not allow them to shake your hand, because that is a transfer of energy. And you can take on their energy and they can definitely take yours. And it's also another way to destiny swap. And bumping somebody elbow to elbow is sometimes used as a spiritual tactic to either offload their bad karma or redirect your destiny, your good karma, your good energy, your good opportunities onto them. So you have to be very careful about this, especially in very spiritual places like New Orleans, which are filled with many portals. New Orleans is a very, very spiritual place, and you have to really protect yourself when you go down there and really understand the culture. I know a lot of people, when they go to New Orleans, they put like salt in their pocket in case, you know, people bump into them on purpose. They don't want to be at risk for destiny swapping. Now, if that's not crazy enough, right? There had been a lot of controversy with the Annabelle doll. Now, if you guys don't know who Annabelle is that demon-possessed doll that's housed by the paranormal experts, Ed and Lorraine Warren. And they've had so many movies. We watched a few of them on Discord. But the Annabelle was never to leave the museum. Ed and Lorraine wants her at this particular museum, but now they're taking her on tour because supposedly there's supposed to be another Annabelle movie coming out. So they're trying to take the doll on a tour so that way it can start building up buzz for the movie.
One doll holds the key to unleashing hell on earth.
You thought you knew her story.
But the truth is, Annabelle's evil has only just begun.
Get 2 breakfast sandwiches for $6 at Tim Hortons, made with freshly cracked eggs.
But what happened is that they done took this doll, child, down to New Orleans. And when I tell you a bunch of crazy shit has been going on in the past like 72 hours, it is insane. Of all places you could take that doll to, why would you take it to New Orleans? A city that's already filled with ghosts and spirits and portals, and it has a very bloodstained history and a lot of spiritual unrest. Ever since this doll has gotten down to New Orleans, this is just some of the crazy stuff that's happened. The largest plantation in the South caught on fire yesterday. The plantation is called the Nottoway Plantation and is one of the largest plantations in the South. And it caught on fire, and Black TikTok was celebrating. Because if you guys do not know, this particular site is haunted. It was one of the largest plantations, so it had a lot of, generations of enslaved Africans, African Americans, and things like that who went through a lot of pain and suffering. And the family that owns it, they have become mega millionaires based off of the back of Black slaves. A lot of people are saying that this is karma for everything that they did to the Black folks on the plantation, and that the fact that they brought Annabelle down there, her arrival helped to spark, because they don't really know what caused the fire at this point in time. It is just like a huge fire. Everybody's talking about it on social media, and a lot of people are tying it to Annabelle coming down to New Orleans. So I want you guys to go ahead and check these clips out.
This was the largest antebellum plantation house in the South, owned by one of the richest enslavers in the South. This is the Nottoway Plantation in Louisiana. It was built by enslaved Africans in 1859. It was owned by this guy, John Randolph. Now, John wasn't even from Louisiana. He was from Virginia originally, but he came from a wealthy slave-owning family, and his dad was hired by the federal government, and he moved with him. Now, originally, he wanted to make it into a cotton plantation, the same type of plantation that he was used to in Virginia. But he noticed that the climate in Louisiana was a lot different, so he changed it to a sugar plantation. And because of that, he ended up tripling his family's wealth. And he was a huge financial backer of the Confederacy in Louisiana. When he realized that the Confederacy was losing, he left his wife in Louisiana, took 200 slaves, and went to Texas. Once the Civil War was over, he eventually died in 1883, and his wife eventually sold the plantation for $50,000. That's the equivalent of $1.9 million today. And now he has no legacy at all.
This you can get.
What the hell, Leonte? What the hell, Leon? What the hell, Berry? What the hell, Bird?
And that part is like,
The roof is on fire. We don't need no water. Let that motherfucker burn. Burn, motherfucker. Burn.
With me, because there is some things about this resort and 4-star hotel that burned down that nobody is talking about, and that my jaw was literally on the floor. It's very clear that it being a museum is not its main focus. It does seem like they've started giving tours again, but this is for weddings and events. They do have a history tab and a drop-down menu. The only thing you're going to find is a list of 16 majestic oak trees that are found on the property. These oak trees are named, and for a brief moment, I was like, oh, are they named after enslaved people? Is this like a memorial? No, it's named after the 11 children of the enslaver. As I was combing through trying to find any information on the enslaved people here, this tab for cottages underneath where you can stay caught my eye. Each cottage has 2 individual units with a single covered porch and oversized rocking chairs. And it's like, oh my God, how tasteless to have something like that on the property given the history. No, I don't think these are fresh cottages. I think they repurposed cabins on site with welcoming beds and full amenities. Oh, thank God. Thank God my slave cabin comes with a hairdryer and an iron. Well, there's at least one of these still around. but this is an unmarked photo. There is no information about this photo. In fact, the only time I saw anything that had anything to do with a person of color were these god-awful candelabras. So with this burning down, we lost a haunted wedding venue at best, and it seems like a place that was literally like Airbnb-ing slave cabins.
All right, so y'all just saw those clips. Now, what was so crazy, if you go and you watch some of those videos of the plantation burning, you can see spirits. You can see people's spirits walking through the fire, and a lot of people are saying that those are the spirits of the entrapped slaves that took care of the property. Also, they had put the fire out at one point, and then it restarted again. Then they had to rush back out there and put it out again, and by then, it was all destroyed. So it wasn't just like, a one-time fire. It went out and it started up again. So a lot of people are saying this seems to be more of a spiritual situation than anything. So now before the city could even recover, right? So we got the destiny swapping. We got Annabelle being sent to the city. We have this plantation catching on fire. Then what happened is that basically 10 inmates escaped from the local jail. And guess what? That local jail is near Bourbon Street. 3 of them have been caught. They were caught on Bourbon Street, but the rest are still missing. And so they're saying that it could be an inside job or outside job, but it's just insane that all this stuff is happening and the authorities are scrambling to understand how it even happened. It's crazy for one inmate to escape, but for 10 of them to get away is insane. A lot of people are saying that the spiritual veil around the city is getting thinner and thinner, and that those inmates, they had some type of spiritual help to help them escape. It wasn't just something man-made or an inside job. It was something spiritual. So y'all go ahead and check this out.
Are violent criminals, and they escaped.
Authorities say a total of 10 inmates busted out of the Orleans Parish facility in the early hours of Friday, taking advantage of defective locks on multiple jail cells. Stunning photos showing the getaway path, a hole behind the toilet with this taunting message, "Too easy, LOL."
The failure in the jail system should never have happened.
The inmates were on the run for at least 7 hours before jail employees realized they were gone. Officials taking even longer to notify the public.
One of the escaped inmates captured right here in the French Quarter, the busiest and most important tourist hub here in New Orleans. It's only about 2 miles from that jail.
This morning, only 3 of the 10 fugitives have been recaptured. An internal investigation underway at the jail after the sheriff said her own employees may have helped in the stunning jailbreak.
We think this was intentional. There is much more than meets the eye.
And Robin, the governor wants a full state audit of this facility. In the meantime, authorities are trying to incentivize more public help. They're boosting the bounty on each of those inmates' heads to $20,000 each.
Lorraine Warren told you all not to move the Annabelle doll. She said, don't move her. Leave her where she is. But it's 2025. And we like to fuck around and find out. So what do? We take Annabelle on a world tour. Okay, we're just moving her all over the place. They sent her to New Orleans. The day they take the doll there, the day Annabelle arrived in New Orleans, an historical plantation burns to the ground. Burns to the ground. They literally had the fire out at one point and it reignited itself. If that's not the ancestors speaking their truth. Anyway, then 10 or 11 convicts escape a prison, okay? There are 10 convicts, some convicted of unaliving people on the loose in New Orleans. Actually, I think they've caught 2 of them now, so 8. And they're saying that they escaped because they were helped by someone within the prison staff. So Annabelle gets there, plantation burns down, and the prison staff is helping unalivers out of the prison. Leave the doll alone.
Contact Roberts Air for all your heating and cooling needs.
Y'all don't find it more than a coincidence that when they finally decide to bring this evil, demonic, ill-possessing, just Santana, I don't even know what the hell, y'all decided to bring evil, literally pure evil to Louisiana, that in the same week, 10 murderers escape from jail, prison, and a plantation house gets burnt to the ground. Plantation house that has been there since
1850s, y'all. It ain't no way that this is just a coincidence. It's no way. I know this is going to sound crazy because a lot of people don't believe in the demonic, spiritual, two-realm world. They don't believe in that. But if this ain't clear proof, then I don't know what it is.
The real Annabelle doll is on tour and people are not going for it. Now let's talk about it. Now I'm sure we are all familiar with Annabelle from the Conjuring franchise, and yes, she is a real life doll, and in real life she is a Raggedy Ann doll, not a porcelain doll. She's been in Ed and Lorraine Warren's occult museum for years in this glass contained box that was specifically built to keep her in there forever. The box is literally prayed over every week. It is covered in scriptures, like they wanted this doll to be contained. But since Ed and Lorraine Warren aren't here with us anymore, they thought it would be fun to take her on a world tour to basically different haunted locations across the state. Even after Ed and Lorraine has stated several times to never move this doll. One of her first stops was at this Virginia State Penitentiary that is known to be very haunted. And this was their first time bringing haunted artifacts in the Virginia State Penitentiary. It's already alleged to have a lot of paranormal activity going on. So you're just gonna bring more paranormal stuff to a paranormal place? I don't get it. Then she visited New Orleans. Now all this stuff going on. Some prisoners don't broke out. The Nataway plantation don't burnt down. I'm telling y'all, it's Annabelle. She doing it. And now they just recently slowly transported her to San Antonio, Texas, some type of psychic festival. And this is like the farthest and like longest she's ever been, like she's traveled in over a decade. And I know some people are like, Ed and Lorraine used to travel with her. Yeah, they were expert demonologists. They would take her to some places just to show the importance of like that this stuff is real, to warn people of the dangers of the occult and paranormal world. But they just try to make a quick buck because there's actually people going to visit this. Now, when y'all go home and a bunch of weird stuff start happening, that's going to be y'all fault. But yeah, like they're taking her to like different haunted motels and stuff like that. And the people in the area are not happy. Like, did y'all not watch the movie? Like she could make things in the area go bad.
All right, so y'all just saw those clips. So once again, New Orleans is definitely no stranger to the supernatural. You know, we've heard about people like Marie Laveau. We've seen hell, when I was in New Orleans, I went on the Haunted Cemetery tour. Very, very eerie. There's a lot of trauma that's trapped in the soil of New Orleans. A lot of blood, a lot of things went on. And it's a mixture of different backgrounds and ethnicities. You know, you had the Black slaves, you had the white slave owners, then you had the biracials, the Creoles, the multiracials, the Cajuns. So Louisiana is just one big melting pot of not only cultures, but also religion. You know, you have the Catholics, the Christians, then you have the people who practice African spirituality. You have the hoodoo practitioners, you have the voodoo practitioners, Santeria, like everything's in New Orleans. So, you know, I don't know. I'm thinking a lot of this stuff is just not by coincidence. It's like everything that's been going on as of late that I've been keeping up with has been tied to New Orleans. So what if these incidences aren't really isolated? You know, what if this is some type of spiritual warfare cloaked in chaos? Got folks trying to swap destinies by hitting each other's elbows. Then all of a sudden a cursed doll arrives, the plantation burns, and then 10, not one, but 10, I repeat, 10 inmates escape from the jail, and they don't know for hours. It's almost like the guards were blinded and couldn't tell that the inmates had been gone for as long as they were. So I leave the question up to you, tea sippers. Do you feel like this is a symbol for something? Or do you feel like this is just superstition? Or is it a warning of what's to come?
Girl, follow me.